Hello, this is Britjet's PSX Tips, Aeroinks PSX 747 desktop simulation, and today's video is all about aircraft communications. Okay, setting up the comms panels. First of all, in PSX Preferences section, as I've ticked here, Morway speakers left and right, so you can hear the cabin dings. And then lots of other things you can do, but in particular here, headphone captain, headphone first officer, speakers as well, but start with that and you'll soon get the idea of how this works. This of course is what happens on the real aircraft cockpit, not what you've got with your own headphones and your own speakers. That's a completely separate configuration to do with your PC. This is how PSX models the simulation. USB, of course, nothing on my device at the moment because this is a client, but you would probably connect up a microphone switch in there. Good. Okay, so the thing to do now is make sure you've got the aircraft, so PSX ATC set up how you want it, and you will have to change a few things. Now my PSX aircraft is set up in Birmingham, UK, EGBB, to go for a short flight to London. You'll see though that here on the origin we keep the legacy origin from a previous sector, so you will have to overtype that, otherwise all the frequencies will be incorrect. So we are actually going from EGBB, so I shall type that in there. It's not a fault with the system, it's just the way Hardy wants to run things. And you'll see when I did that, that all the frequencies below it have changed. Responsible now is EGBB ground. Make sure that responsible now is at the top for the start of your sector. And if it isn't, then untick the two boxes here and then tick again for the one you want. And that will force responsible now to the top. Okay, let's have a look at the ACP panel in a bit more detail. First of all, apologies, I can't get the mouse to work over the top of this presentation, so you're going to have to try and follow through what I'm doing. The active and standby boxes, I think, are self-explanatory. You can move from one to the other, and like this. And you can obviously change the standby frequency using the knob. Fair enough. Now then, the other things to think about: off panel, if you press and hold the off, switches it off and it will come back onto the default startup, so the right one will come on and start up on the right side and so on. The little selectors in the middle, VHF left, center, right and so on, they are the means of selecting the frequency boxes. Now there is a complication to this. If I select VHF right in the left box like this, I now have control of the VHF right box, and the two lights will come on to tell me that those two boxes are now linked, and any frequency changes I make in the left side, I'm turning the left knob here, will be reflected on the right hand side. Can be quite confusing, and I recommend that you try not to use this. If I go to center again, you'll see the same thing happens to the between the left and the center. So that's one little thing there. Coming down, the HF left, you've now got control of the HF frequencies. The AM button is used where you are receiving an HF transmission which is not single sideband. This is quite a rare thing these days. Amplitude modulation, if it's selected, means I'm not using single sideband. I just want to hear the amplitude modulated signal, which will make it clearer. If you have that pressed down for real and you are listening to single sideband, you get a heterodyne effect, rather like somebody shouting down a length of drain pipe. So most of the time that is not used. And of course you've got VHF right with the same lights presentation. So that's how those work. The HF sense button here will actually do nothing more than select the sensitivity of the audio reception on the appropriate box like that. Hardly touched, it usually stays at 100. So those are those selectors. Now if we come down below that, you've got the mic buttons. All these little black rectangles are mic buttons. You'll notice I've just selected right VHF with the mic button there, and I'm getting the ATIS. So wherever you select a mic button, the audio reception is also switched on. If I just want to listen to the audio without transmitting, then I would switch it on using the audio volume knobs, like that, and so on. HF will have a hiss, which is the HF background, like that, and the cabin will have a side tone, like that. Sat phone isn't operative on PSX. You've also got the option of having a speaker output like that. RT or interphone, press and hold. If you want to talk to air traffic control or to the ground engineer, hold it for at least 3 seconds, or just pretend to make the speech transmission while you hold the button. Center VHF has ACARS. It's the only box that can use it. The ACARS must be active as it is here. If you make it over to the standby setting like that, you've just lost your ACARS. You can use it as a comms box, changing the frequencies like this and then making them active, but you will no longer have ACARS. Which says, where has the ACARS gone? Oh my god. Well, it's quite simple to get back. You simply select the standby frequency out of its normal audio range, so up to about 136, and you will get data back, and then you push it over to active and you've got your ACARS again. Now, identifying nav aids audio wise, to be honest, very rarely done, because the nav display will decode and display the Morse code ident for you most of the time. But if you want to listen to the code, then these are the knobs for you, the ones on the lower part of the ACP. So VOR, fairly self-explanatory. If I select VOR left, you can see I've got the HON on the nav radio page, and we can listen to the ident. Now, you will get two types. There's the DME and the VOR itself. The DME will be a higher pitch, like that. Okay, so that's how you identify the VOR. ADF, very similar. Just put it over to ADF and start the thing off, and you should hopefully get an ident for ADF left here, which I think was the BHX, if I remember rightly. There you go. And there is an option on the nav radio page to suffix the frequency with an A or a B. So you would do, if I just move the thing a little bit here, you would do something like this. You would put in 406 and then B. You can read up about this in the manual. Very rarely done. But this particular one, for example, is a BFO, a beat frequency oscillator, and the other one you can use is an antenna, which is even less frequently used because it's a certain recipe to hurt yourself. Now, what the antenna does is give you a clearer signal on the ident, but the ADF needle doesn't point at anything, which is not very useful. So those are those, and if you want to get rid of it, then just over-type with the raw frequency again like that. Now, identifying an ILS, same thing, go to the approach button, and this will be the left ILS. Coming up, he said, somewhere. And so on for left, centre, right. If you move it across to marker like that, then you will hear the marker beacon as you fly over it. Not terribly often used, to be honest. The other thing you can do is, if in some cases you can get a situation where the ILS is not radiating, but the ILS DME is radiating. And what you do with that one, and I'm not going to go through it in great detail, but you select the appropriate ILS like that, and because the ILS isn't radiating, you won't hear anything until you select something other than approach on that side's display. So something like plan would give it to you, and then you would hear the ILS DME. But that's a minor point, and it's in the manual if you need to read about it. So those are your options. You've got transmit button here up to the top and interphone down to the bottom if you want to speak to the engineer. Okay, the aircraft is now ready for push, and I'll get clearance from the ground controller to push. So before you do that, on the service tab here, just make sure you've got it set up with the appropriate heading and click on the start button there. So the system is now armed. All you have to do now is talk to the ground controller for at least 3 seconds. So there are two ways of doing this. One is on the interphone, which he'll be listening on. So the INT switch, hold it back for 3 seconds, or select the transmitter, the RT, to the flight selection like this. I'll do it this way so you can see what I'm doing, and then transmit to him for 3 seconds. And again, you'd ask for a pretend clearance to push. So, hello ground, we are ready to push, blah blah blah, for at least 3 seconds, and wait for his reply.
Steering pin inserted. Release brakes, please.
There he is. So
Pushing back.
let the brakes off, and he's pushing the aircraft back. And that, of course, would be as far as we need it to go. On the service section, you can stop the pushback at any time, or you can leave it in auto. When we've gone far enough away, he will ask us to put the brake on.
Set parking brake, please.
Here we go. I'll try and set the parking brake and hold the mic at the same time. I need an octopus for this. I'll just acknowledge it.
Towing system removed and steering pin removed.
And that would be the end of the ground controller. So now you'd move your mic switch back to the left position. So once you've got rid of the ground pushback guy, ask for taxi clearance. So here we go, 3 seconds again. Blah, 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 requesting taxi clearance. Du-du-du. There we are, change to tower. So acknowledge that with a transmission, 118.3 for at least 3 seconds. And change to the tower frequency. And you'll see that the responsible frequency is now the tower. And so you carry on. Now the ACARS only operates through the center VHF radio, which is the one the bottom left here. So it must say data under active. Now if you want to use it as a comms panel, you just select the data across like that, and you've now got a comms set. Why you'd want to use one in PSX I can't think, but in the real aircraft sometimes that is necessary. Now if you subsequently dial another frequency here, you lose your data message, and this can cause a mild panic because you've now not got ACARS. So the way to get rid of that is to dial a frequency in the standby box which is outside the normal VHF range. So if I wind it up like this, I eventually get data back, and then you can transfer it back. So that's just a little trick to get your data. Okay, cabin calls. Well, one of the most common ones is cabin ready, like this. That will occur before takeoff and also before landing. The message is only there for 2 minutes and then it goes out, so you have to keep your eyes open for that one. And there are various other priority calls that they can make to get hold of you, like that one, to ensure that they get your attention. Now, the other thing that might happen is you want to make a PA. On the real aircraft, quite often you'll see something like this, which means that the PA, sorry, get this right, the PA is in use, so you're not going to talk over that unless there is some greater urgency. And calling an individual cabin, well, as I said, we get this side tone to start with, and then you dial the number. Now, it's a 2-number dial, so 1, 2, 2, 3, something like that. The first one means which side of the aircraft it is. So 1 would mean left side, 2 would mean right side, and so on. And upper deck usually is 5, depends what the individual airlines want. So for example, if I wanted to call the rear of the upper cabin, I would dial 56 on my directory. That will get me a cup of tea, hopefully. If I wanted to speak to the senior cabin crew member at the 1 left door, I would dial 1, meaning the left side, and then 1, meaning the forward door. Okay, let's see if we can call the cabin and get a drink. So, press the cabin mic selector. And let's try the upper deck, which is 56. Hope they're in. I'm thirsty. I haven't had a drink for 2 hours.
Hello.
Is that Maria, the upper deck stewardess with the big boobies?
Uh-huh.
Could I have a cup of tea, Maria? I've got a mouth like an elephant's jock strap. She's
Fine.
gone. Thanks, Maria.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.